Okay, well, you see that we are live. So hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this second event celebrating 350 Sacramento's 10th anniversary. My name is Kate Wilkins. I'm a volunteer with 350 Sacramento and a board member, and I'm a co-lead of the Carbon Zero electrification team at 350 Sacramento. And I am pretty stoked that you can all join us via our live stream on YouTube, and then I think also on Facebook. So I have the pleasure this afternoon of being in conversation with Paul Lau, the new CEO and general manager of the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, known to us all as SMUD. So Paul, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to participate in our anniversary month and chat with me this afternoon. I have a few updates before I turn it over to Paul. I'm gonna do some housekeeping items, then I'm gonna do a formal introduction, turn it over to Paul for an overview of some of SMUD's carbon reduction goals and a little presentation. And then after which I have some questions prepared that I'm gonna ask. And then we're gonna also open it up for audience questions via YouTube. So a reminder to the audience, if you wanna drop questions in the YouTube chat, you need to have a YouTube account, which is free. And you can just do that, you know, while you're waiting for the audience question portion to open up. And also a reminder, we likely have folks watching who may not be casual experts in energy technology and some of the really detailed things SMUD does. So my goal is to stay focused kind of on broader and a little bit higher level climate and energy issues. And last reminder, as you would with anyone and on any platform, please remember to be respectful in your comments and questions. So I'm gonna have Moise turn it over to my sponsor slides to get started. I wanted to thank our amazing sponsors who have helped make this, not only this month's activities possible, but as well as supporting our organization as a whole and all that we do. So of course, our climate rockstar SMUD, and then we have our climate heroes, Chrysalis Cosmetics in the Sacramento Metro Air Quality Management District. And then we have tons of climate champions, the Environmental Council of Sacramento, Councilmember Eric Guerra, Councilmember Steve Hansen, some SMUD board directors, Rosanna Herber, Dave Tamayo, Save the American River Association, and then some climate guardians with a long list. I'll go fast. Borderlands Bakery, California Solar and Energy Storage Association, Environmental Student Organization at Sac State, the GRASS, the Green Restaurants Alliance, Mogavera Architects, Physicians for Social Responsibility, Brandon Rose at SMUD, the Sacramento Dharma Center, Climate Sangha, and oh my gosh, and there's more. Okay, Sacramento Native American Health Center, the Solar Rights Alliance, Heidi Sanborn, Sunrise Movement Sacramento, Therapists for Social Responsibility, the United Nations Association SAC Chapter, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and Hal Thomas. I think that's good. Okay. Whew. Okay. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors. We're so stoked to have this month happening. So you can take the slides down now if you want, Moise. I wanted to also give a special shout out to SMUD board members, Greg Fishman, Brandon Rose, Dave Tamayo, Heidi Sanborn, and Rosanna Herber, who registered to be listening in this chat today. Hello, if you folks are listening. And might as well give a shout out to all current and former SMUD members. You guys are really boosting our numbers by listening to this talk. So thanks for hanging in there. Hopefully at the beginning of this presentation, you saw the calendar of the month's events right when you logged on. But coming up next in our anniversary month is Ode to Earth, which is a visual and performing arts showcase that's happening this Saturday at 6 p.m. And you would register on Eventbrite just like you did for this event. Also, one last shout out to all the wonderful volunteers at 350 Sacramento. You know, we got our first paid staff this summer, but before that, we've been an all volunteer effort since October 10th, 2010. So these folks have stopped, you know, oil trains from rolling through downtown. They've held 4 community forums to discuss local climate solutions, advocated for countless bills in the state legislature, you know, organized many protests, and have made many comments on the plans of our regional public agencies like SMUD, always pushing for things like stronger caps, timelines that match the urgency of the moment, and at every turn advocating for the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So excellent job, everyone. After this month is over, you can take November 1st off and then back to work on November 2nd. And I planned that really bad joke without even realizing the election was on November 3rd. So please, all you organizers and activists, back to work November 2nd. So now for the main event, I would like to virtually introduce Paul Lau. Paul previously served as SMUD's Chief Grid Strategy and Operations Officer. He was named Chief Executive Officer and General Manager in October of 2020. He reports to the SMUD Board of Directors. As CEO, he leads the 6th largest community-owned electric utility in the nation, serving a population of 1.5 million residents and managing a $1.7 billion budget. Paul is a 38-year SMUD veteran and has held several executive leadership positions with the organization. He serves on the boards of the Large Public Power Council, the California Municipal Utilities Association, the Business Council for Sustainable Energy, the Smart Electric Power Alliance, and the Electric Transportation Community Development Corporation, and as a commissioner on the Balancing Authority of Northern California. I'm very glad those weren't acronyms. That would have been difficult. He serves on the boards of a number of Sacramento area community organizations, including the University Foundation at Sac State, the Los Rios Colleges Foundation, and the Sacramento Asian Chamber of Commerce. Active in international energy issues, Paul serves as a delegate with the United States Energy Association, where he has helped with electrification, operations, and demand-side management in countries such as Bangladesh, India, and Jordan. A registered professional electrical engineer in the state of California, Paul received his bachelor's degree in electrical power engineering from Sac State. And he is also a senior fellow at the American Leadership Forum. So we just can't understand why you got the job, Paul, but okay. Done with my on-the-cuff talking points. I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Well, thank you, Kate. Thank you for the kind introduction. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself to 350 Sacramento, right? And to talk about my vision for SMUD moving forward. And a big congratulations on your 10th anniversary. If I leave one lasting impression today, I hope this is the importance of collaboration and partnership. For SMUD to succeed in our ambitious decarbonizing and sustainable efforts, we need the support of a wide range of players, including elected officials, community leaders, technology companies, car manufacturers, solar companies, environmental groups, and so on. And if we're successful, 350 Sacramento's 20th anniversary will be an even brighter affair. I want to work with groups such as 350 Sacramento to build the sustainable and equitable future we're all seeking. I'm a collaborative person by nature, and one of my primary goals as SMUD CEO and General Manager is to use the organization's power and reach to engage new and diverse stakeholders moving forward. It is a tremendous honor to be entrusted with the responsibility of leading an organization with SMUD's reputations and history. The board's decision to select an internal candidate is a strong endorsement of SMUD's direction and a testament to the vision and leadership of my predecessor, Alan Orchard. I've worked with Alan for 30 years and know from experience I have some big shoes to fill, and this is only my second week on the job. So let me share a little bit my background. My wife and I have 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. I was born in Hong Kong. Before settling in Sacramento, my family moved to Africa, Nigeria, Africa, and then to Truckee. And then I came over and settled in Sacramento when I was 13 years old. So Sacramento's my home. I'm currently 58 years old. I started at SMUD as an intern in 1982 when I was studying electrical engineering at Sac State. And when I graduated in 1984, I joined SMUD as an assistant electrical engineer. I rose through the ranks and became Chief Grid Strategy and Operations Officer in 2015. But during that time, I've been the Chief Customer Officer, the Chief Technology Officer, the Chief Power Supply Officer, and the Chief Energy Delivery Officer. So that's quite a mouthful. So as you can probably aware, I kind of know the company inside and out, and have the great fortune of leading about 80% of the company through my career. So now the events I've experienced, during my years at SMUD include the closure of Rancho Seco, our nuclear power plant, by vote referendum in June 7th, 1989. The energy crisis of 2000 and 2001, and the decision to form our own balancing authority, which helped us to avoid rolling blackouts, the other parts, of that experience. And then the big one is that the $127 million grant SMUD received from the US Department of Energy during the Great Recession. And this is really the money we got to expedite the construction of a smart grid. The smart grid project was an important one in my mind because it really shows the power of collaborations between SMUD, other agencies, our customers, universities, and others, and how the power of working together deliver great outcomes for our city and for our region. The explosive growth over the decades and the expansion of SMUD's program to give customer more choices in the clean energy options. I was selected by the board in late August to become SMUD CEO and general manager. And my first day on the job, as I said earlier, was October 3rd, which was last Monday. Particularly in a year as disruptive as 2020, there are challenges, to be sure. My first order of business is to build on the great work Olin did, navigating us through and beyond the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're not over that yet. And in terms of organization directions, SMUD is focused on the right things, and we make significant investments in technologies, innovation, and also in carbon reduction emissions to improve the air quality. Next slide, please. So I'll do a quick recap of where we are now. As most of you know, oh, I have my screen froze. Can you guys see me?
We can see you, Paul.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, my screen froze for a second. Perfect. So as most of you know, the SMUD integrated plan that was approved by the California Energy Commission sets a goal to be net zero carbon emissions by 2040, while significantly increasing local and regional renewables, expanding electrifications of transportation and building uses, and maintain grid reliability, all at affordable costs. And I think the CEC mentioned that is probably one of the most ambitious goals. You know, that's what actually set for the region and for our utility. And our plan maximizes local air quality benefits while prioritizing the reduction of carbon emissions in disadvantaged communities. And currently, on average, more than 50% of SMUD's carbon mix is carbon-free, and will continue to expand our diversified renewable portfolio in the next 20 years. And this includes 670 megawatts of wind, 1,500 megawatts of utility-scale solar, 180 megawatts of geothermal, and 560 megawatts of utility-scale energy storage, and about 290 megawatts of rooftop solar. Next slide, please. Now, SMUD, we really have led the way in carbon reductions. Our renewable energy goals predated those of the state. We're the first, I think, utility, in California to reach 20% renewable at 2010, and we're the first utility to adopt the 33% RPS before the state mandate, and we're also the utility that adopted 50% energy efficiency goals better than a state mandate. So we've been reducing our load at least 1.5% per year through energy efficiency. And some year, we actually have reduced it almost 2%. But since the CEC approved our plan, the SMUD board took an even more aggressive position by adopting a climate emergency declaration in July that seeks to deliver carbon neutral electricity by 2030. A big part of my job as CEO now is to help us find carbon reductions in the quickest way possible for all our customers, including those living in historic underserved communities, while continuing to provide reliable service and affordable rate. And staff right now is busy doing our strategy or our pathway, our roadmap to reach the board's, I think Director Heidi Sanborn has framed the moonshot goal. That will be brought back to the board in early 2021. We all know that won't be easy, but it pays to be bold. And if any utility can achieve it, I believe it's SMUD. Next slide, please. So if you're serious about talking about carbon, you cannot talk about really the electrification of transportation and buildings, because that is going to be a cornerstone of SMUD's decarbonization efforts. As our reliance on carbon-based fuels decreases every year, increased electrification of two of the largest energy users, building and transportations, will greatly reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improving local air quality, and spur economic development. On the building front, we're partnering with developers to create all new electric single-family and multi-family housing developments. The program, the first of its kind in the nation, offers design assistance and financial incentives to builders of up to 5,000 per all-electric single-family home and up to $1,750 for new all-electric multifamily units. Now, SMUD has supported electric transportation since the early 1990s for a variety of reasons, the foremost being air quality benefits. We have greatly increased our investments in such electric transportation solutions as charging infrastructures, electric school buses, managed charging pilots, and more. I think most of you probably know we're one of the first utility, right, to put electric school buses, in Twin Rivers School District, so that we can actually bring, improved air quality in those underserved communities. And Governor Newsom certainly right now sees electric vehicles as a key factor in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Judging from the executive order he passed last month, banning sales of new gasoline-powered cars by 2035. And right now, SMUD, we're about, a little bit over 13,000 electric vehicles. And by 2030, we're projected to have maybe 230 to 250,000 cars, electric vehicles. So that's quite, an increase if you're talking about, the adoption of electric vehicles. Next slide, please. Now, some people in the community are calling on us to shut down all our gas-fired power plants. And those calls haven't fallen on deaf ears. As you probably know, we studied and modeled the scenario in RRP, but it didn't stack up in terms of neither price or reliability. Now, as the board's climate emergency declaration recognizes, taking an aggressive approach to climate change has only grown since we passed IRP. And the board passes its version of the moonshot, and I've been instructed to come up really with the best pathway to get there. And in fact, I think, we have so many lingos, we call it integrated resource plan. I think we're referring that now, if Director Herbert's listening to, that is now our 2030 or 2040 energy plan. So we know it will be hard. I mean, this is a moonshot goal, and it's going to require thinking differently and necessitates support and really collaborations from a wide range of partners. And we see 350 Sacramento as an important partner in this journey together. Environmental leadership is one of the SMUD's core values, along competitive rates, safe and reliable power. And then we're really at the forefront really of national effort to develop a more sustainable future. So consider for a moment some of our firsts. So we built the first utility scale solar array in 1984. That's a long time ago. And we developed the first commercial community solar program. That's called Solar Share. It's a 1 megawatt turkey farm out in Wilton. We're the first in the nation to establish a large scale tree planting program, Sacramento Straits. The last time I checked, we have planted over 600,000 trees to absorb carbon. And I think we're one of the first ones to even develop, what a tree carbon sequestration protocol actually looks like in the nation. We're also the first utility, courtyard, our new building at Brescia, energy, our yard at the Brescia is to be zero net energy. And then we're also the first utility in California to adopt time of date use for residential customers, reducing peak use, and also the need to build additional power plants. And we received the largest federal smart grid grant infrastructure of any California utilities. And we really helped develop the world's greenest sports arena by providing 85% of Golden One's arena's energy consumption through solar power. So if any utility can actually get to a carbon neutral future by 2030 in the Sacramento region, I really believe SMUD and the Sacramento area is going to show the world how to do this. Next slide, please. So I think that is the end of my presentation.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you so much, Paul. Appreciate that overview. Much of what you just spoke to really kind of sets the stage well, or even supersedes some of my questions you might say I put together. And to those folks watching, some of the questions I'm going to ask were crowdsourced from 350 volunteers. So Moise, if you want to take down the presentation, that would be perfect. And we can just jump right into questions. Hopefully I don't have as much glare anymore. Yeah, it's better. Okay. So Paul, I mean, first of all, congratulations are obviously in order. You became the new general manager on October 3rd, 11 days ago. So that was very exciting. You, like you mentioned, and I read in your bio, you know, you've worked at SMUD for 38 years. You've been on the executive leadership team for 12 years. You have been chief grid strategy and operations officer prior to October 3rd since 2015. And you're taking over from Arlen Orchard, who was also a veteran of SMUD, you know, with about 30 years of the company and CEO for the last 6.5. So I know you spoke to this a little bit, but how does your vision for SMUD, and if it does, differ from Arlen Orchard's vision?
Okay. So obviously, you know, my background and training is in engineering, right? And as I said earlier, I've worked in pretty much every single part of the major core functions of SMUD. Mm-hmm. So I think my vision is that, I think Arlen's vision 6 years ago was really to start thinking about how to prepare SMUD for a low carbon energy future. You know, he actually did a lot of investments in terms of getting us ready, in terms of putting in computer systems, looking at our workflow, creating our culture to get us ready to deliver on a future. So my vision is to build upon what Arlen did. Mm-hmm. You know, SMUD, we have a national, international reputation for being a leader in environmental leadership, but do it in a way that also maintain world-class reliability and also keeping rates affordable. You know, our rates is about 38%, 35 to 38% cheaper than our neighbor. So my vision really is to now to deliver on the vision, to really become a partner with our community, to be a powerful partner and a convener to move us toward an inclusive zero carbon economy. Mm-hmm. Take advantage really of our great sterling reputation and the great work that our staff has done to now and Arlen has done to now, and really propel us to say, come partner with us. Mm-hmm. You know, we have this moonshot goal to get to carbon neutrality by 2030, 10 years ahead of, you know, our previous goal of integrated resource plan, 15 years ahead of the state plan. So come partner with us. You know, bring your best ideas, bring your innovations, bring your capital. Come and invest in Sacramento to show the world how we can become a climate change leader for the world to see, but do it in a way that is also looking at the needs of the community as a whole, so that when we solve carbon, we solve things more than just carbon. We solve things like air quality. We solve things like, you know, social and you know, social equity and environmental justice. Look at, you know, looking at in terms of how do we look at transportation, healthcare, inclusive workforce development, all those things that are important to our community. I want to make sure that this is really where SMUD and our vision is going to go in the next 10 years.
Yeah, SMUD has always, I mean, it's known as like a leader in the industry. I think I've been to a couple of SMUD board meetings, and some of the board members have talked about going to an annual conference, and it's called like the SMUD effect, or, you know, you're very, very well known in the industry for, you know, being progressive and kind of forward thinking, and while maintaining the importance of low, you know, reliable service and lower rates than some other providers in California. And I really like, you know, do you think it's important, that you've kind of tied in some of my next questions, which was going to touch on, you know, that goal that's now, the last IRP in 2018 was 2040 carbon neutrality, and now it's 2030. And that was set by the climate emergency declaration the board passed in July. Do you think it's important to kind of set these moonshot goals as a way, you know, having a goal like that affords you the opportunity and the pathway to really explore to do that, you know, like being bold in your goals. That's what we always think about at 350 Sacramento, right? If you don't even set the goal, you don't really have to find out a way to get there. So yeah, it was, how are you gonna speed up to that? Or is there anything you're excited about in terms of reaching that new kind of 10-year speed up goal of 2030? You know, what might change? What's already happening in terms of what are staff looking into to make that happen?
So Kate, I think that's a great question, and I really want to commend the board, for declaring the climate emergency declaration, because it really does give staff now, I think the authority, and also really kind of the drive to say, okay, this is a moonshot goal. So let's look at how do we actually take advantage of making this declaration to say, SMUD, we are going to be a global leader. SMUD in the Sacramento region is going to be a global leader. So this is an open invitation, as I said earlier, to put us at the table for have discussions with policymakers, with Department of Energy, with the folks, the technologists, with the national labs, to say, wow, SMUD in the Sacramento area is aligned to put a goal forth that nobody is thought is possible. So that means it's going to force all of us to think and to do things quite differently. So 2 years ago, we said, SMUD can't do it alone. But if we partner, right, if we partner with our customers, we partner with our community and the region, if we partner with private, in the industry, we partner with, the regulators and the market operators like CAISO, and really embrace innovation, embrace technology. This is possible, because now, what wasn't possible before, all of a sudden, if you take a look at, hey, what happened if customers become a major part of the solution, right? And when you talk about demand response, when you talk about, distributed energy resources like rooftop solar and PV, when you talk about expanding utility scale storage and utility scale solar, and you think about, well, what about all the new technology that's coming on the generation side, that you need to start embracing maybe new technologies like hydrogen to repurpose the use of those, natural gas plants. What about, biogas? What about synthetic fuel? So all of a sudden, when you have this moonshot goal out there, it really forces us to think very, very differently, and to challenge SMUD, and really kind of challenge the industry, and challenge really kind of the best and brightest of the mind to say, how do we do this? How do we work together to accomplish this moonshot goal? I mean, some of us, as we're talking about this is almost like a galaxy goal. It's actually more of a moonshot, but it's a galaxy goal. But I really believe if we put our minds together, by working together, I think this is something that's what was impossible before. Now it's possible. And that's why it's important to set those aspirational, those moonshot goals. I know that's a little bit of a long answer to your question, Katie, but I want to make sure I kind of give that, the full thinking to 350 Sacramento, because we'll be a major partner in terms of how we go forward.
We would love to. I mean, and I know we want to be involved, and we'll be at the meetings regardless, right? But I mean, in some of the things, it's like that would almost be another talk. Like I find it so interesting, the technologies that might even be, nascent now. When you mentioned things like hydrogen in terms of natural gas plants, I know that's probably stuff people would like to hear so much more about, are the opportunities for batteries, and just like things that we don't even have ideas about, or don't even know that's possible, that might be common practice in 10, 15 years. And like the way that we totally get to some of these, our carbon neutrality or net zero. So I find that super fascinating.
Yeah, I think Kate, you brought up a very good point, right? I mean, in terms of even new technology like land-based sequestration, right? That, what are some of the key things that the R&D research that you need to do to make some of those a reality, right? What about carbon capture at the plants, right? So there's a whole host of new technologies that's out there that I'm hoping, would come to fruition, that Sacramento and SMUD certainly will be partnering with those companies to try to make those new technologies available and test it here. And once they're good to go, then we bring it to scale and make it happen in Sacramento.
Yeah, awesome. And my next question kind of ties really perfectly into what you've been saying. And I have a quote ready also that was even I thought a good segue into this. And it was from Rob Kurth, president of the SMUD board, current president of the SMUD board. And this was featured in SMUD's announcement about you become general manager. And it was also in the Sacramento Bee article. And Rob said about you, his vision to meet the urgent challenges of climate change through collaboration and partnership will help take SMUD's reputation for environmental leadership to the next level. So my question is, and you have been speaking to this, how do you plan to use your influence as SMUD CEO to rally other civic leaders to advance climate policies that benefit SMUD and the community? And how can the environmental community, how can 350 Sacramento best support you in that work, in that advocacy work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you heard me talk about earlier, right? So this is going to take everyone coming together, right, to reach its goals. So certainly SMUD, we must use our influence, right, as being a $1.8 billion local institution. And really, how do you leverage really our board of director with their influence and its constituents, right, to really start thinking about how do you rally, the city, the counties, groups like the SACOG, groups like the Air Management District, like Regional Transit, to start really kind of aligning our resources, right, for maximum impact. In fact, and I think you kind of mentioned earlier, so we certainly have been working with the city, right, to see what do you need to do, what kind of code do you need to, really advance, building electrifications, and what kind of codes that you need, and and policies that you need to increase vehicle electrifications. And what kind of ordinances do you need to make sure that you have smart charging, And so really, I mean, I really do see organizations like 350 Sacramento be a major partner as we go down the path and say, well, to really adopt this new technology or really to adopt this new business model, we need new maybe codes and regulations or maybe ordinances that is going to be help to accelerate this versus hinders it. So I think absolutely this is something that we need to do together to really kind of influence the legislature and also I think the regulators in terms of how are we going to do this.
And I know so far, I mean, I like I said, I'm on the electrification team, and I've worked with some great folks at SMUD who've provided fabulous insight on electrification, and have participated in some of our events that were aimed at the city and their ordinances on electrification of like low and high rise. So that always seems like everyone was already so helpful, but it's great to hear. I mean, it's so important, and it's great that it can benefit SMUD and the community at the same time. And you guys are such an asset of information and technological expertise, and like very influential, obviously. So sure.
Well, I think one of the things that you kind of brought up earlier, right, is that one of the key things that we also want to show in order for policies and new ordinance to take effect, or you really want to work with the developers and installers, those people who are actually doing that work, to make sure that to remove any challenges or any technical difficulties, for them to make that to be fruition, or for the ordinances or the code to work. You really want to demonstrate that it's going to be effective, it's going to be useful, right? And making sure that it's part of the equation going forward. You kind of include everyone, and not just the lawmakers or the regulators.
No, and I'm happy you brought that up, because it's actually something, as even in my intro, and I'm like, we always at every turn advocate for reducing carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, but sometimes it's not just that. Sometimes there's other concerns to take into account before you just, like you were mentioning before, social equity, and making sure this benefits all people. So I think it obviously is important in doing this work that, knowing what the other side, the folks who are, may not like this forward motion as fast, but what their actual concerns are, and why they say that way. So I'm happy you brought that up. SMUD has, as you mentioned, billions of dollars in planned investment in electrification and energy efficiency over the next 20 years. How do you plan to prioritize these investments for low-income neighborhoods and customers who need and will really benefit from these investments the most, like you mentioned?
I think that really, this is one of the most pressing challenges moving forward, is how do we ensure low-income customer can transition from gas to electric household at a similar pace to our better-off customers? How do we transition those customers to a low-carbon future when they struggle to pay rent or mortgage, or even address the basic needs like food on the table for the families? So how do we achieve our carbon goals and still ensure that electric bills are affordable for customers who are struggling financially? We don't have all the answers, but social equity and environmental justice are at the forefront of every decision that we make. With our sustainable community initiative, I think most of you are aware of, SMUD is aligning our programs and goals and investments around supporting healthy, vibrant, and economically sustainable neighborhoods for all customers. To ensure the largest collective impact, we're teaming up with policymakers, healthcare providers, and community-based organizations to solve real problems for real people. Some examples. We're teaming with Habitat for Humanity to provide more than 1.1 million in funding for more than 50 homes and 100 multifamily residents to provide solar power, electrification, energy efficiency, and revitalization upgrade for the deserving families. We're partnering with local nonprofits to install solar systems that will serve the Sacramento Food Bank, saving them nearly $200,000 in annual electric costs, freeing up valuable funds to support vital community services. We're focusing more intently on equity, meaning redesigning SMUD's low-income assistance program to provide greater benefits to customers experiencing the heaviest electric bill burdens. Pilot programs provide some retrofits, home retrofits, energy efficiency products, and weatherization to more than 19,000 low-income households from 2017 to 2019, and to an additional 2,900 households since the pandemic. This measures helps our most vulnerable customers save energy and money over the long term. And we've designed our popular Sacramento Shade Tree program to make sure we promote equity tree growth in neighborhoods lacking the tree canopies for more affluent neighborhoods. That's some of the things that we're doing, to address that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for speaking to that. As we've already mentioned, I don't want to say it was always important, and it's increasingly great that that's being acknowledged and with all program rollouts and future implementation of some of those programs, which are really exciting. And I have heard about electrification programs before. We're just, kind of retrofitting low income, I believe, apartment housing, and just SMUD kind of taking a real lead on just kind of moving some of the gas appliances out and kind of just retrofitting it and doing that on your own accord, which is fabulous. My next question is, what are some of the common misconceptions you think the environmental community has about SMUD's activities and decisions? And what do you think can be done to address those? How do we get on the same page and support SMUD and address those misconceptions while also pushing you to always go faster, right? Which is it's the advocate's role. If you could speak to that.
Yeah, I think some of the misconceptions that, some think that we're anti-solar because now we're seeking a net energy metering rate that's equitable for all customers, right? When we supported solar for decades, we've invested $250 million to support customer adoption of rooftop solar. So I was one of the architects to actually the solar smart homes that if it wasn't for the Great Recession in 2008, 2009 timeframe, every single new home in Sacramento would have a 1.5 to 2 kW solar system along with high energy efficiency. So I think we've been a very, very strong supporter of rooftop solar. And we spent $130 million to put in 125 megawatts, right? 5% of our load right now is coming from rooftop solar. But I think what it is that, because of our rate structure, that we collect a lot of fixed costs, through the kilowatt hour sales, it is actually creating a challenge for us to how to address that going forward. I think most people don't know, that our load and our energy sales is less than what it was back in 2006. Our peak SMUD happened in 2006, and that was 3,300 megawatts. And because we've been so aggressive in our carbon reduction efforts, that you heard us talk about, we actually adopted 20%. We actually got to 20% RPS before the rest of the state. We adopted the 33%. We've been reducing our energy, our energy consumption through energy efficiency 1.5% or more for the last 10 years. So all those is actually accumulating in a way that, we need to have to rethink about as we go forward, and we want to get to and zero carbon by 2030. We want to make sure that the rates that we're putting forth, is equitable for everyone. And we're working hard right now with the rooftop solar industry to find win-win solutions to go forward. Because certainly going forward, rooftop solar and rooftop solar plus storage is part of the solution for us to get, to a zero carbon by 2030.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah. I have heard rumblings about things about rooftop solar. So I know that is, thank you for addressing that. And I'm sure we may even have some questions on that when we turn it over to the audience. But I have like one or two more for you here. So I was hoping, and you did touch on this in my first question. But if you could speak to the future of SMUD's cogeneration facilities, the gas plants, and if what future plans for these plants might be, and if there are plans to phase those out at some point.
Okay, so one of the things that staff is doing, I'm instructing staff to do right now, is to look at an absolute zero case, right? So right now we have 5 gas-fired plants that is in operation, and and the current plan that we have is we're going to go from 50% to 20% by 2040. But now we're really looking at, okay, well, is it possible for us to accelerate either the shutdown of those plants by 2030, or retool those plants, with a new fuel by 2030, but do it in a way that it still actually maintains the reliability that we're looking for, but also in a way that our rates, keeping our rates affordable. So that is one of the things that we're doing, and saying, okay, if we can't shut all of them down, and can we stop phasing it out? Can we take one of them down, by in the 5-year time, or 2 of them? Or what are the things, the technology that needs to be put in place? What are some of the, in terms of, what are some of the technology advancements and the tipping points that has to happen within those that can prove that we can shut those plants down and not sacrifice reliability and not sacrifice the rates? So that's really the kind of the challenges that we're doing, but we are looking at it. I mean, as I said earlier, it wasn't, didn't fall on deaf ears. So I am looking at as an absolute zero case by 2030.
Cool. Well, yeah, no, I know when there's been discussions about that, there's always an interest of just like, what would that even look like? You always want decision makers and the agency to consider that, to see what is feasible and what can be done. So I appreciate hearing that from you. That's really cool, that you are taking a look at that absolute case and just possible retooling. I'm going to have to look more into hydrogen things later. I'm like, I don't know anything about this. Okay. And then I have one question for you that you actually started touching on earlier. And I kind of put this in here because it's of personal interest to me. I have a degree in agriculture from UC Davis, International Ag Development. When I was at Davis, I was super interested in the potential of, ag lands and working lands to sequester carbon. I know SMUD, you mentioned soil sequestration earlier. Is that something SMUD is currently involved in research about, or is that something that you might expand in the future, or you're seeing what is possible there as part of your strategy to, reduce emissions? How to sequestration?
In fact, Kate, when we had the Delta Conservancy came in and actually talked to our board to educate them about really where they're at in terms of, from a voluntary, either going to a protocol, and actually being able to go to compliance. So this is the land-based sequestration is something that we have been funding. If you kind of look into it, SMUD has been one of the early funders in terms of looking at how do they play, when you get to a carbon neutral future or absolute zero future, and how does it actually work. So this is area that we're certainly looking into, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in those areas, right? As you know, about how that specifically how that land-based, carbon capture will actually work. Yeah.
And I know we actually have someone very involved in 350. We have a great future of food panel, I think, in a few weeks at the end of October. And I believe someone will be speaking kind of to those solutions like soil sequestration. So super interesting. So this is perfect timing because it's 4:45. And I think we can transition to some questions from the audience. And thank you so much. Moise has been dropping them into this chat. So I'm going to read some out to you, Paul. So this is from the audience. Is SMUD willing to invest in microgrids and more CCAs going beyond utility scale solar, especially in disadvantaged communities?
Certainly, this is, in fact, we just had a conversation yesterday with some of the microgrid, vendors in terms of how do you play into, how do you actually look at microgrids and play it into the absolute zero or carbon neutral future, right? So what kind of fuel can you actually burn if on the microgrid, and really what is the economics on doing that? So that is something that we're looking at. We've been looking at it for quite a while. But usually when you talk about a microgrid, you have to have commitments of the developers, right? The people who's in those area to kind of sign into that investment. And so we, I guess, make a long story short, we are looking at it. And that is one of the things that, that could have a possible role into the zero carbon future.
Cool, thanks. We have another question. We have quite a few questions, but the next one is, what happens? I'm going to paraphrase because the question is like, what happens to gas fuel based cars when people switch to electric, but before the end of the life of the gas car? Yeah, I guess the worry about there's still a useful life maybe in these gas powered vehicles, but we're trying to encourage folks to go electric. Do you have any thoughts on that? Or
So certainly, I mean, we're going to do everything that we can, right, to remove the barrier of adopting electric vehicles, right, and also improve the economy of owning electric vehicles. But we also understand the challenges of, you are going to have a lot of old combustion turbine, combustion engine cars going to be around for quite a while. So it's really about now, you're talking about creating policies, right, working with the regulators in terms of creating incentives, to phase out those gasoline engine cars as quickly as possible, at the same time removing the barriers and the economics for own electric vehicles. So both sides. So I think you got to work on both sides of the equation.
Definitely. We have another question on if there are any exciting updates on energy rebates for homeowners. Someone saw your slide that talked about greenergy, but I'm not sure you touched on it or explicitly said the word greenergy. So I believe COVID, I remember that COVID, in the onset and the effect on SMUD changed some of those rebates for a while. Do you have any updates on those or?
Yeah, so I think what it is that, our team is busy working right now in terms of really redesigning our green energy programs and our green products. So I don't want to let the cat out of the bag right now in terms of, and sorry for actually skipping the slide earlier. I have some technical difficulties all day, with the slide glitching out and not seeing it. I thought it was over. So my apologies on that. So probably what it is that we are going to start thinking about transitioning the green pricing and what the green product actually looks like. And we will be working very closely in terms of what 350 Sacramento can do to help us, for customers who has a passion, right, to do more. And, we want to make sure that we give them programs and venues for them to do more. And then we want to make sure that we deploy, work with organizations like 350 Sacramento to create that base, right, so that we can continue to have new green pricing products, to have more people sign up on it, and then we can actually get there faster.
I think that's also an interest. I remember something I've heard when I attended some SMUD board meetings. I mean, I think this was in 2019, and it was on various issues, but folks commenting and saying, they're almost happy. I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but to pay more, or, for those who can on specific things, take on a little more in order to help make some, things more equitable, which I just thought was really interesting. It's an interesting concept for like folks opting in, and greenergy is the perfect example of that. But like, honestly, like willing to do a little more or have a rate a little higher. And this isn't not in relation to the rooftop solar conversation, but just that is kind of like a very interesting dynamic that when you say you're going to, customers might be part of the solution, that like actually embodies that the customers might be part of the solution for those who are willing to like opt into these programs or like do a little bit more. I find that super interesting.
Well, Kate, if you actually let me indulge a little bit, on the history on some of those programs, right? Yeah. So when I was director of customer service or the chief customer officer, SMUD also had a carbon offset program that is purely voluntary. That based on your lifestyle, based on your travel, you can pay into a fund. You can pay into this program that that you can do more, and contribute more. And so we'll do things beyond really what the average ratepayer is paying for, because people are so passionate about it. So I was on the on the solar share program, I was on the carbon offset program, I was in every single I was on the green energy program. So I was literally in every single program that and I think that's great. You have the option for those customers who's willing to do that. But I'm also very sensitive, for those customers who cannot afford it, because I still remember going to a rate hearing, and I was the director of customer service at the time, and my first time rating rates, and I made the comment that our rate increases, the minimus is going only like 265, if I remember correctly, and I made the comment that it's a cup of coffee at Starbucks. an elderly lady afterwards very politely came up to me and said, Mr. Lau, I want to tell you something. I don't go to Starbucks. 250 is a loaf of bread on my table, and that has always stuck with me. That you have to think about, as a CEO or anyone who works at utility or designing programs, you really have to be sensitive really to all the customer base, and not just those people that maybe are very passionate about something. Because we have a segment of customers are passionate about different things, right? It's making sure that we all align with that passion together, so we actually get to the end game. All of us is striving to get.
Totally. Yeah, you have, there's obviously, it's wonderful when folks can involved and come to meetings and make comments. And it's great that it's remarkable and really nice that a group of folks are like willing and would like to do more, but it's always important to, take into everyone's voices, obviously. Another question. According to power content labels that the California Energy Commission provides, SMUD's gas usage increased by 10% in the last 2 years we have data for. When will we start to see this percentage shift to renewables?
Yes. Simple answer is yes. I think what happened is that SMUD, we are one of the early actions that addressed climate change. So we do have some historic offsets that we actually banked. And so depending on what's available in the market, right, and what the year's hydro production actually looks like and what the gas prices is. And so we always try to optimize that, for our customers to make sure we keep our rates low. So you do actually see sometimes there's a difference in the power content label, because there's different rules of what you put in the power content label. And so that's something that we always look at. But going forward, if you're thinking about going to carbon neutrality or going to absolute zero, the burning of the usage of the gas-fired plants have to come down, right? That's just by definition that we have about 1.8 million metric tons of carbon, right, from our plant's generation that we have to take care of to try to get to zero.
I think this next question is kind of a nice segue into that. Everyone's setting it up perfectly for me. So past IRPs have never addressed how the cogeneration plants and consumeness will be scaled down and eventually shut down. And I know we just chatted about this earlier. Will the March climate emergency include a plan for the thermal fleet? I know you said you're looking into that, so I think that's what this question's referring to.
Yes. So we'll actually look at the feasibility of, if you want to shut down those plants, right? There's two options, right? One is to shut down the plants. One is you retool the plants. And so those are the two options that we're looking at to say from a reliability, a cost, and a feasibility perspective, when can we quickly start shutting down those plants? But obviously, consumptiveness is our biggest one, right? It's, depends on the years, 30 to 40% of our energy comes from that, right? And then you have like a peaker plant, like McClellan. Is there a way we can start phasing some of those out? But you got to do it in a way that's, you want to make sure that you have reliability, like during the recent heat wave, right? We actually did work. We had to use it, in order to support our customers. In fact, we did, and we also supported our neighbors, in the CAISO area. So I think that's really kind of the fine balance that we always have to look at, and we will bring those conversations, out to the community in terms of as we're laying those plan out and say what actually makes sense, right? Because I don't think right now you really want to have a rolling blackout during the heat wave, right? Because of the fact that, you want to get to zero and you shut down all those plants. And in fact, if you look at California, right, that's what's kind of happening on the one through cooling. They have extended it for a couple of years because of the latest reliability issue. So I think you want to have a goal to shut them down or retool them by 2030 as quickly as possible. But you want to make sure that, you understand what the assumptions were and you track it as those are going through.
Totally. Okay. A couple, and I know we have a few more minutes left, so maybe we can get to one or two. One question is, why not incorporate Yuba County or Yubico and Bullard's Bar Dam Hydroelectric? They have a water agency that doesn't know how to handle the electricity. PG&E is messing it up. It's time for SMUD. That doesn't mean much to me, but maybe it means a lot more to you. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, so we certainly will look at all the available, hydro resources that's made available to us. But I don't think right now, I don't think my board has charged me to go out and really kind of look at well, kind of resources that really not ours right now to control, right? And now if the opportunity arises and kind of presents itself, we certainly will look into it, right? Just like, we bought Chili Bar, right, from PG&E to complete on the hydro, and we just commissioned, a 2.3 megawatt plant, up in the Wicker River, right? I mean, up in the foothills, right, for us to increase our renewable generation. So whenever the opportunity presents itself, we're certainly going to look at it.
Cool. That's for the board members listening. So if you want this to happen, now they know. And here I have one last question. What is your position on VNEM, VNEM, and the potential for community solar projects dedicated to low income, including renters?
We're in serious consideration on that. That's one of the things that we're actually looking at as part of the VNEM discussion, or the VNEM 2.0 discussion. So VNEM and VNEM for low income customers is definitely one of the things that we're considering, because we had a pilot. We had a pilot that we actually ran, and so we're looking at the result of that and see how does it actually play into the VNEM 2.0 conversation, making sure that people in the underserved community, low income, actually have access to solar also, and then get the benefit of solar.
And can you describe what VNEM is to those who may be listening who don't actually know what that acronym stands for?
So VNEM is like virtual net metering. So basically, if you put a solar on a roof in a commercial, like apartment buildings, and you just virtually assign the output of those, to each individual homes, and you actually get the reduction in the bill, because you get the solar generation that's a portion to your apartment. So it's just another way of doing solar, but not directly to your meter, but even though it is in some regard, right? But it's to the whole apartment complex. That's how they're doing it. That's why it's called virtual net metering.
Makes sense. Thank you. Yeah, and well, Paul, it's pretty much 4:58, so I know we're going to draw our event to a close. I want to say thank you so much. It was a pleasure chatting with you this afternoon, and I really appreciate your willingness to talk with us. I know folks in the 350 community were super excited to get to know you and hear more about your vision, and we look forward to partnering and working with SMUD in the future on all the various things that will be going on. Very exciting. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the invitation, and I'm hoping that in the future we will actually meet your membership in person, and maybe, as I said, I'm sure we'll be having lots of Zoom meetings for now.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can work together and kind of create a future, right, that our kids and our grandkids could be proud of.
I completely agree, and thank you for that. And so for those of you still joining us in the audience on YouTube, for after this event, we have plenty more. You can go to 350sacramento.org to see what other things are going on this month. You can join a team if you're interested. You can get on our listserv, which sends out a weekly newsletter with calendar invites. So you would have seen this event on that calendar. And Moise is showing you our webpage right now if you're interested in that. Actually, I'd say our listserv and calendar invite is like really comprehensive. So and we have our flashy 10th anniversary page on this. So we're trying to entice you to visit on your own time. So it's 5 o'clock. Thank you to all who have watched this afternoon. This will stay up on YouTube if you want to revisit it. This is, I believe, the permanent link. So I want to say thanks to all who are watching. Thanks again to Paul, and I hope everyone has an excellent rest of their Wednesday.
Well, thank you, Kate. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Paul. Of course.
Bye-bye.
Bye.